What's going on, Sage Hills? My name is Pastor Connor, and I am the pastor of student ministries here. And man, am I excited about what the Lord is doing this week, especially since it is Holy Week leading up to Easter. So far, we have been pressing through in a devotional, and we heard a spectacular word from both Pastor Cam to kick us off and Pastor Jim yesterday, and it is to my great pleasure to be leading the devotional for today. Today, we're going to be looking at John chapter 12, verses 20 through 36. But before we dive in and read, I just want to ask you one question. How is your soul today? Take a deep breath and think about and reflect on how is your soul today. In these times, in these current days that we are facing, we have been experiencing the full weight of our humanity. We are seeing the wages of sin and its roots in anxiety and pain and brokenness. However, as harsh and hopeless of a reality that we are being dealt right now, it is only fitting that we are experiencing this in the midst of what is the greatest week in all of history. The week that reinstated hope at the centerfold of all humanity. The week that prepared a spot at the holy table for everybody in existence. And yet, in the thick of this joyous celebration lies the darkest hours in all existence. A time where sin thought it had the final say. Where it thought it had victory by way of crucifixion and grave. But then came day 3. The capstone of a week that declared victory beyond the grave. The week that provides the confidence of love, unity, and holiness. The week that leaves us undefeated. How is your soul doing today? Let's read. Now there came some Greeks among those who went up to worship at the festival. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, with a request. Sir, they said, we would like to see Jesus. Philip went to tell Andrew. Andrew and Philip in turn told Jesus. Jesus replied, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly, I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Anyone who loves their life will lose it, while anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me follows me. And where I am, my servant also will be. My Father will honor the one who serves me. Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No, it is for this very reason I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it and will glorify it again. The crowd that was there and heard it said it had thundered, and others said an angel had spoken to him. Jesus said, this voice was for your benefit, not mine. Now is the time for judgment on this world. Now the prince of this world will be driven out. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself. He said this to show what kind of death he was going to die. The crowd spoke up. We have heard from the law that the Messiah will remain forever. So how can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is this Son of Man? Then Jesus told him, you are going to have the light just a little while longer. Walk while you have the light before the darkness overtakes you. Whoever walks in the dark does not know where they are going. Believe in the light while you have the light so that you may become children of light. When we had finished speaking, Jesus left and hid himself from them. How is your soul today? My next question is, when our soul is in sorrow, when it is troubled, what do we find ourselves rooted in? Jesus in this time both fully man and fully God, had his most inner being troubled. But what did he root himself inside of? He rooted himself inside of the fact that the Father gets all of the glory, and all of the glory that the Father gets is far greater than any life that we can live for ourselves in this world. Jesus alludes to this in verses 24 through 26, where he describes the wheat kernel. I was reminded of this when I looked out my backyard this past week and I saw the tree that is right in the middle of my garden, and it's rooted up right now and it's starting to blossom. At one point, that tree started out as one single seed, and had I just kept that seed for myself and never planted that tree would never sprout up and blossom to grow various seeds to drop into the earth to replant more and more trees. See, Jesus is saying that inside of the sorrow, it is for this hour that he came, and this hour is to glorify the Lord. So how can you, inside of your time where it is very easy to fall back into the root of humanity, of self-centeredness, to keep that seed for myself, to focus on what is only good for me in my life? How can we divert from that and glorify the Father by going and spreading God's glory, his love, and his hope, especially in a time where we are experiencing mass fear and hopelessness and depression and anxiety? How can we divert from that and spread more branches out to create more seeds? See, Jesus doesn't say that this is only for the Jews. No, what Jesus does is responds to the Jews on what they believed was taking place through the law. And he says that this is for all people. It's interesting inside of this story as Jesus is depicting how we are supposed to live our life, even inside of our souls being troubled, to glorify the Father, that he was addressed by the Greeks first, but then later on responds to what the Jews say. See, Jesus doesn't limit himself to a particular people group. And in this day, he is calling you, even inside of the midst of a troubled soul, to go glorify the Father by spreading out that wheat kernel, by planting that wheat kernel inside of a ground to have it blossom so it can produce more and more wheat kernels so that the world can experience Jesus' hope. The last thing I want to leave you with is Jesus describes the light. And what he says in verse 36 is, believe in the light while you have the light so that you may become children of the light. A wheat kernel does not sprout up and produce a great harvest of multiple kernels without the light. And so today, my question to you is, inside of the state of your soul, maybe it's uplifted and peaceful, or maybe it's feeling despair and depression. Maybe it's troubled like Jesus's was. What are you rooting yourself in? And how can we root ourselves in the Father to give him the glory inside of a monumental time like we are experiencing with this pandemic? One application this week that I want to encourage you of is take a picture of a tree. Make sure you social distance if you go outside, but as you head outside or maybe you look out a window, take a picture of a tree and scroll through that each day of the week. And as you look at that tree, send it to us on Instagram or on Facebook so that we can all be reminded that it starts with one seed, but if that seed doesn't die from the branch of the tree and fall into the earth and with light and watering, it does not uproot. And so take a picture of a tree, make sure to send it to us on Instagram or on Facebook, and that way we can all be reminded of what we are called into, even in the midst and the season of our hearts being troubled, that we are called to uproot and spread the gospel and the glory of Jesus and the Father so that we can produce more seeds so they can fall to the earth and proclaim his victory and his glory so that we can stay undefeated. I love you guys. I'm praying for you, and I hope that you are continuing to press on in the hope and the promises of Jesus.